With a look at the international, political, and market responses to President Donald Trump's new tariffs.
U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response.
Making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be...
Canada. North America's cool-headed neighbour is now on the world agenda with one of its harshest trade curbs. On March 4th, Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, shaking relations with Ottawa, for many years one of its biggest trading partners.
Tariffs, 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start.
Trump was perhaps overconfident about the tariffs and his economic management, even assuming that Canada and Mexico would meekly accept them. But this has not been the case at all. On March 4th, Trump actually started a very critical trade duel in the Americas, targeting not only steel and aluminum, but also critical items from automotive to energy. This move shakes the North American free trade chain to its foundations. Trump's confidently imposed tariffs have created a huge shock, but Canada was not about to back down. The sanctions that Trump has imposed since his inauguration have collided with a big rock. Canada had told Trump that it would not let him have his way, but Trump did not take it seriously. Recent developments have proved to the world how serious Canada is.
They point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
Canada responded with lightning speed to Trump's tariffs, which came into effect on March 4th, creating a huge shockwave in the United States. Canada's tariff list includes very sensitive and indispensable products for America. The list includes many items such as steel, aluminum, automotive parts, trucks, agricultural products, and even foods that will affect the daily lives of consumers. Moreover, the talks are not limited to additional taxes. Cutting off the supply of crude oil, natural gas, and electricity is also on the table. "We will cut off your energy," Canadian provincial presidents have said, sending United States refineries and consumers into a panic. So how can Canada's shocking retaliation list, which includes $107 billion worth of United States products, force Washington into a corner? On the one hand, Trump says, trade wars are easy to win. On the other, Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau is taking steps to escalate the severity of the retaliation with the message, "We will not bow to unfair decisions." At the same time, Mexico is facing similar tariffs, further escalating tensions in North America. Domestically in the United States, farmers and industrialists have begun to openly voice their concerns about this harsh protectionism. How will global markets react to a lose-lose trade relationship between two big neighbours? Or will logic prevail and the two sides come to the table soon? We take a closer look at the answers to all these critical questions in light of Canada's unexpectedly harsh stance and the Trump administration's stance. Now let's get into the details. World trade is evolving as economic relations between countries become increasingly complex. One of the most striking examples of this complexity is the protectionist trade policies initiated by United States President Donald Trump during his term in office. Through high tariffs, the Trump administration has sought to protect the United States domestic industry and reduce the trade deficit. In this context, even close allies like Canada have been forced to develop defense mechanisms against these unilateral United States policies. Canada has historically had strong trade relations with the United States. Nevertheless, Trump has directly targeted Canada's economic interests by increasing tariffs. These tariffs, especially on strategic sectors such as steel and aluminum, have the potential to undermine Canada's existing trade balances and the competitiveness of local industrialists. In this situation, Canada did not delay in taking countermeasures and reacted effectively in the international trade arena by imposing tariffs against the United States. The Canadian government announced a comprehensive package of counter-tariffs against United States-made products after President Donald Trump's administration confirmed on March 4th that it would impose tariffs against Canada and Mexico.
But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs, 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start.
The facts establish very clearly that Canada
will not let this unjust decision go unanswered, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in a statement. Hours before his administration imposed sweeping import duties on America's closest neighbours, the United States President claimed there was no room left for a deal to prevent their implementation. Under the plans, all Mexican exports to the United States would be subject to a 25% tariff. Most exports to Canada would be subject to a 25% tariff, and energy products would be subject to a 10% tariff. The 10% tariff on China was doubled last month to 20%, according to a White House directive. After a one-month delay, United States President Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods and 10% tariffs on Canadian energy products as of March 4th. The idea behind Trump's policy is to implement his America First slogan and protect American industry. However, the fact that the ties between these two countries, which have a huge trade volume, have come to the point of breaking, is not only putting Canada in turmoil, but also the United States' own economic ecosystem. Canada is one of the United States' largest trading partners, with bilateral trade worth more than $900 billion a year. In response to the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, Canada announced on March 4th that it would impose retaliatory tariffs on United States goods. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and some Canadian provincial leaders have also responded with additional measures. "We are ready," said Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly, adding that the country is well prepared for this customs war. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, on the other hand, has said, "We will not give in to this unjust decision of the United States." It appears that in the first phase, a 25% tariff will be imposed immediately on about 30 billion Canadian dollars worth of American products, and within 3 weeks, the figure could rise to 125 billion Canadian dollars, or 107 billion United States dollars. Trudeau said retaliatory tariffs on 30 billion Canadian dollars, $20.80 billion worth of United States imports would take effect immediately, and more tariffs could follow. The tariffs will remain in place until the United States lifts its tariffs on Canada. The countermeasures will not apply to goods already in transit. The CAD 30 billion is part of an overall retaliatory measure targeting CAD 155 billion worth of goods imported from the United States, while the remaining CAD 125 billion will take effect after a 21-day consultation period. The first part of the retaliatory package includes 1,256 products such as orange juice, peanut butter, wine, liquor, beer, coffee, household appliances, clothing, footwear, motorcycles, cosmetics, pulp and paper. In terms of import values for some key products, cosmetics and body care products are worth 3.5 billion Canadian dollars. Household appliances and other household goods, 3.4 billion Canadian dollars, pulp and paper products 3 billion Canadian dollars, and plastic products 1.8 billion Canadian dollars. The Canadian government will consult with the public and stakeholders on the second tranche of retaliatory tariffs. These will include a wide range of products imported from the United States, such as passenger cars and trucks, electric vehicles, steel and aluminum products, fruits and vegetables, aerospace products, beef, pork and dairy products. Non-tariff products are even more notable. Trudeau also said Canada is considering non-tariff retaliatory measures on critical minerals, energy supplies and other partnerships. The Energy Minister said an export tariff on critical minerals is an option. Canada's provincial premiers are also prominent in this process. In particular, the industrialised provinces of Ontario and Quebec are the most ardent advocates of a retaliatory ring against the United States. "We will ban American companies from tenders, impose taxes on thousands of items a year, and cancel projects such as Starlink," they say. Ontario Premier Doug Ford's statement, "Half of the nickel you use comes from us. If we cut it off, you will stop production," confirms the fears of those who say this is escalating to a vicious level. Ford also mentioned the option of halting all energy exports to the United States. Trump's statement, "In a few weeks, I'm going to impose high tariffs on food and agricultural products," also angered Canadians. This is because Canada-United States agricultural relations are very strong, with everything from farms to dairy products, fruits and vegetables, to prepared foods crossing the border. Sources close to the Trudeau government say, President Trump has yet to realize the cost of sanctions, and tariff walls will put American companies in a corner in some areas. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, has been very clear. "We have the power to stop production because the raw materials you use, nickel, steel, even electricity, come from us." Likewise, United States farmers and some state governors are worried. "If we treat Canada this way, our trade will be cut off like a knife. Who are we going to sell our products to?" Yes, it may not be easy to actually act on these threats immediately, but even such tough talk from politicians could be enough to change the mood in Washington. The phrase, "when Canada's patience runs out," is not a phrase heard often in history, but that is exactly where we are now. Trump has repeatedly claimed that trade wars are easy to win. Is this really the case, or will the outcome turn out to be a nightmare? If Canada were to impose restrictions on United States oil or natural gas, many refineries and industrial complexes from Texas to Louisiana would struggle. These refineries rely heavily on Canadian supplies, especially when they need heavy crude oil. Likewise, automobile assembly lines in the United States are integrated with parts from Canada. If Canada slows these parts down or makes them more expensive through heavy tariffs, car prices would rise, production would shrink, and unemployment would be at risk. Trump's policy, which he says protects our own workers and industry, could create a boomerang effect that harms consumers and producers in the United States. There is a similar picture on the Mexican front. When Trump imposed 25% tariffs on Mexico at the same time, the Mexican government, just like Canada, started to make statements like, "If you are so hard on us, we will turn to other markets or return to you with extra taxes." In particular, Trump's statement that there is no room left for an exempt agreement ignores years of integration with NAFTA. This has the potential to tear apart the huge network of supply chains that the three countries have woven. For years, America's automotive, agriculture, steel and electronics sectors have been closely tied to Canada and Mexico. Now, the move that disrupts this order is forcing Canada and Mexico to react harshly with the logic of "then we will reciprocate." Canada's immediate retaliation of $107 billion is a link in this chain. Of course, there is also a political aspect to this. While Donald Trump is sending a message to his own voter base, "I'm making America strong again with protectionism," politicians in Canada and Mexico are commenting, "Our neighbour so close to us is stabbing us in the back." The most intriguing issue amid these tides is whether the flow of energy between Canada and the United States could be cut off. Experts say it is